Hi everyone and welcome to the All Things ITSM Global Podcast. I'm Kirsty McGowan. I'm here with Carlos Casanova.
Hello, Kirsty.
Hey, and Mark Smalley. Hi Mark.
Hi there.
And today we're talking with Chenxi Wang from Twistlock. Hi Chenxi, how lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Hello, Chenxi. Thanks for joining us today. We're covering a wide spectrum of time zones here from the UK all the way down to New Zealand. So it's kind of great that we're seeing this. And I think the abilities of technology and the progressions of technology that enable us to do things like this also kind of play in from a speed perspective, how we've gotten here, and how we continue to just release products and capabilities out to the market space. The issue is, as we all know, is the security components of these things, or the lack thereof. And it's been a challenge as things have progressed. But this speed seems to be even more of a challenge, and it doesn't appear that we can no longer just wait for the next release and say, hey, okay, now we're going to hand it over to testing, we're going to hand it over to security, let us know how good or bad we did, because there's inherently some architectural components that may have not addressed security pieces. So, this is, I guess, where you've spent quite a bit of time working in this space. Can you speak to sort of that speed and pace and how, it appears that we almost have to embed it into just the everyday life of development now?
Yes, absolutely. I actually think of this as an opportunity for security rather than impediment, because we are now seeing a tremendous speed of software delivery from development to production, and this is what the business needs, right? Business requirements mandates this. Now, for security and operations folks, the traditional MO is to pull things back and say we need to analyze, we need making sure things are working well before we deploy it. Those are no longer the option. So what we need to do is really embed security, or sprinkle, I call security fairy dust across the you like that? Yes. So you sprinkle the fairy dust across the different stages of micro steps into the microservice applications. So when you touch on every little component of the microservice, security is part of that development, updating, and management. And when that happens, then we really are looking at a system that is much more secure or easier to be secured than before.
Right. It's interesting because, I remember probably 10, maybe, probably more close to 15 years ago, I was working with a large financial services organization, and we put together a security development framework. It wasn't DevOps, it wasn't Agile or anything like that. But the first thing we looked at was we put in 3 stages of the security component during development. During design, during the specification, design, and the actual implementation, to look at that, and then we came around at the end of development pre-deployment to see, hey, did you meet all of those things? And these weren't low-level things, but just basic architectural components. So, and that was in a slow model, right? So I can imagine it's just got to be incredibly challenging to embed that today and get the the knowledge base into those individuals in the speed and pace that they're working now.
Right. So it's no longer possible to do things in this way in a fast-moving organization, or anybody really has like internet scale applications where you have to move very fast and updating things. So what we're seeing is a tremendous move to reuse of software components, third-party components, open source components being adopted extensively across the organization. And really, why not, right? Why write your own web server code when you can have Nginx or Redis or whatever that people have already used, tested, and tried out in different environments? So this is where technology like Twistlock come in, is we analyze those pre-existing is not the right word, but we analyze these components are extensively deployed in different environments, and we are building up, every day we're building up a large knowledge base. We know what a MongoDB container should behave like. We know what an Nginx container should behave like. And we use this knowledge base to different organizations, different customers, to teach them how to do security better and build better secure applications.
Yeah, now, you mentioned a lot of technological stuff there, but of course, the humans are always the weakest link in the chain. And these developers are really under pressure to deliver stuff quickly. How on earth do you get them? Do you generate awareness and get them to pay enough attention to talking about the cultural aspects? Could you talk to that?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things we see really worked is making things easier for developers, right? Not adding more tasks to them, but rather making security into almost a click of button thing. Right. So we have client organizations have Jenkins pipeline where security bugs are reported the same as development bugs, and it's being very painstakingly sort of prioritized so that they spend developers' time on critical bugs, and the rest are taken care of by either auto updates or DevOps team can do certain things. So they're really making lives easier for developers. And also, when you have the DevOps sort of initiatives put in place, what you're getting is the developers see much more immediately what their code is behaving on the production server. And this wasn't possible before because there's a sort of a cultural and as well as physical separation, right, in the past between development team and what's out there running. And now the DevOps monitoring schemes, the tight-knit of operations development, making it possible that the developers can see immediate effect of one line of code that he's putting into the production server. So that also makes an emotional change where the developer takes much more pride, much more immediate pride to what he's produced. So I think they do care about security because they want to produce good code, secure code. What you need to do is making it possible for them to do that, and that is what's happening today.
Right, and it's interesting. Sorry, Mark. It's just that you were saying that because as you were speaking, I was thinking, how much of that is management and leadership, kind of. I don't want to say they're definitely not doing it intentionally, but because of the timelines, because of deliverables and milestones, I totally agree that most people want to do the right thing in the best way they can. Some people obviously are not competent to do that, but that's a different discussion. But I agree. I think it gets interesting because the management and leadership is a big factor in that. If they're driving the developers to just deliver, hey, you just have to hit the date, we all know what happens. The back end, the testing, all those sort of things always fall off the end. And we roll it out because we have certain commitments. So I guess to take the cultural piece to the next step, Mark was talking about the developer, but are you seeing management and leadership kind of, accepting the fact that, hey, we need to add that little extra in the middle to make this happen?
Yes, but slowly, I would say. There are certainly some organizations already there. They have top-down mandate on having checks and balances into the DevOps procedures and processes. Most, I would say, are still waking up to the fact that they need to do that, and they would know tomorrow, or if not today, that their developers are already doing it. And if they don't manage it, they're looking at a much severe consequences down the line than they are experiencing today. So I think the management, the top-down support will come in time. It's not quite there in every organization yet.
Yeah, you talked about helping developers to take care, to be more aware of what they're doing. I'd like to use that as a segue into a completely different area, taking it more from a societal perspective, thinking about the younger generation, the kids, and generating cybersecurity awareness with them. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because it's a really challenging area for lots of parents.
Yes, it is, and funny you should mention that. I'm a mom myself, and cybersecurity for kids is a very I have passion for that topic for personal and also professional reasons. So last year at the RSA conference, which is the biggest cybersecurity conference in the US, a few of us recorded video segments precisely on this topic. And what we're looking at is how professionals like us can be involved in not just in our own families' lives, but use our knowledge to impact schools, impact sort of youngster organizations like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and use our knowledge to teach the kids grow up in this digital world how to handle digital media, how to preserve their privacy, and how to understand the consequences of certain behavior in the cyberspace. And I think it's sort of it's a grassroots effort right now. Many of us are doing it in an ad hoc manner, but there's certain organizations are trying to do this as sort of a unified platform, and I love to see those efforts happening more and more. And I think it's much needed for our society at this stage.
Yeah, sounds like a great initiative.
You carry on, Matt.
So I'm just going to say that that sounds like a really worthy initiative.
Yeah, and I guess the thing that I was thinking of is it's kind of interesting when you think of how Twistlock is approaching certain solutions for the corporate side, where you're containerizing that aspect from a security perspective in terms of being breached. I'm wondering if, I guess philosophically, we can kind of flip that upside down, containerize what the children are doing, the kids are doing, and even us as individuals are doing it, and not so much protect it from inbound, but making sure that it doesn't go outbound. And I'm just kind of curious, as again, I'm just thinking out loud here, I guess. It just seems like we could probably flip a lot of the same concepts that you're doing with Twistlock in reverse, and then try and propagate that out.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I mean, it's really a philosophical analogy, right? In young children's lives, there are a lot of things need to be protected, such as personal information, and to some extent, the schools are doing these things, but not in a very formal or very sort of a checked out kind of way. What we need is so schools. Every school has these systems where kids' information is stored, but they're not a system that has been through very extensive security audit.
Rarely.
Yes, and we've been seeing data breach incidents for schools, which really makes me very uncomfortable. What I like to see is cybersecurity professionals, putting in our efforts together to provide a school system something that's interoperable, yet has really good segregation and protection virtualization capabilities, which enables appropriate data access and interactions for school applications, all that, but in a very sort of assurance kind of way, provide privacy and security for our younger generation. I would love to be able to spend actually a little bit more time of my professional life to do that.
Right. Yeah, it is frustrating, because I think we all see it in our own respective towns and cities. People, again, like we started, people are trying to do the best they can, but we know town governments and state governments are not funding the way we'd probably like, and the IT director at your local high school is probably doing the best he or she can do, but let's not kid ourselves, they don't have the training and security and operations that yourself or any of us on the call have. So yeah, it does probably have to be a grassroots thing, because let's be honest, none of us would probably take one of those jobs as a full-time position. So they can't hire folks with that kind of skill set to do that. So I guess you're right. It's kind of on us to assist in whatever ways we can.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're right, Carlos, and I assume it's happening globally, not just here in little old New Zealand. That the government is really pushing digitisation on schools. They want they want digital learning, they want everything else, but they're not putting those safeguards in place at the same time. And you're quite right. Through no issues of their own. Yeah, carry on, Chenxi.
Right. In fact, there's an actual court case right now. It happening in my son's school district, where there's a judge has subpoenaed student information in order for an existing court case. Talk about diversity metrics and things like that. So the judge has subpoenaed student data in clear text with family information, addresses, names, phone numbers for this investigation. And many of us are fighting this because the court has no safeguard in place to keep this information secure. And it's going to appear actually in public court documents. So, things like that, I think there's much we can do as cybersecurity professionals to help these different industries to realize the impact of information gathering and how to store information, but we are not, as a society, we're not quite there yet.
Right. Yeah. And Chenxi, I think one thing I saw a while back, that's becoming a little bit more popular is from the cybersecurity and the breaches perspective, they are in many cases targeting sort of the younger demographic because it's a demographic that won't recognize that their background and all their information has been compromised for another 5-10 years potentially. So it's kind of even scarier to think that if it's one of us, when we file our taxes or when we do our next credit card or whatever, it might pop up. A child who's 6 years old, who has a legal security, social security number or whatever it is, we may not find that out for 15 years or 10 years.
Right.
So that's a lot of time to breach and play around with their info.
Yes. In fact, I know a specific case, a friend of mine whose daughter's social security number was stolen and used by criminals. So she actually has a record on her social security number, right? Which it's very frustrating as frightening as a parent. There are actually services out there now, and I'm very happy to see those services. They help you scan your child's records and detect any misuse of information, including names, social security numbers. I'm not sure the same services exist in European countries, but maybe the safeguards are different there. Those services, unfortunately, I don't remember the exact name. If I know this question, I would have brought it.
Yeah, we tend to wander.
Yeah, but I think every parent should know about the existence of these services and understand how to use them and for safeguarding the safety of their children.
It's been great talking to you today, Chenxi, and there's certainly a lot more we can discuss along security in a whole lot of different areas. So I really hope perhaps we get a chance to get you on a live podcast when we're at an event somewhere. That would I'd love to actually sit down with you in real life, face to face, and talk some more about this. There's been some fascinating topics covered this morning. So
I would love to. Now that we're connected, hopefully we'll do this live someday.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Mark. It's been a great podcast today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.